Now and then in the sport of boxing, we get some joke activities. Today, we will be having a fight that I truly do not care about. And I asked you guys on my poll earlier, who do you guys think is going to win between Nate Diaz and Jake Paul? And more of y'all said Jake Paul. I also agree. I also think Jake Paul is going to win. Not only do I think Jake Paul is going to beat Nate Diaz, but I think Jake Paul is going to probably end up knocking Nate Diaz out and stopping him. That being said, I think Jake Paul is a joke. I thought he's a joke for a while, I appreciate him actually dedicating himself to training and taking the sport seriously, but he's not that good, and he kind of makes a mockery of the sport in a way, and I've never really respected that. Nate Diaz and the MMA fighters, they need to go back to their respective boring sport. There's a reason no one watches MMA, because it's boring. It's not the main combat sport. The main combat sport will always be boxing. But Jake Paul needs to just go back to being a YouTuber and stop trying to get involved in a fight that I truly have no interest in, and truly nobody else should have interest in. But unfortunately, the average casual boxing fan, I've heard more people bring up this Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight than they have bringing up an elite level fight like, I don't know, Teofimo versus Josh Taylor a couple months ago. I didn't hear anyone talking about that fight. That being said, it's going to be a one-sided affair. I think Jake Paul is going to beat him easy, and we're going to leave it there because I don't want to even talk about the fight anymore. And in other boxing news, we have a war today. We have a fight that is worth talking about, unlike the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight. We have the battle of two Mexican warriors going at it. Now, even though Oscar Valdez has been accused of a drug cheat in the past of his career, this fight between Emmanuel Navarrate and Oscar Valdez is going to be a bloodbath. You got two Mexicans that come forward, don't really fight on the defensive too much. Two offensive warriors going at it in a slugfest. I expect this to be a bloody bath war. Kind of reminds me of the old days, Marco Antonio Barrera versus Eric Terrible Morales. I think we're going to get a classic doozy between Emmanuel Navarrate and Oscar Valdez. I have no idea who's going to win. I can't give you my prediction. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I'm leaning towards Valdez, even though I think Emmanuel Navarrate has more heart. I think Valdez is just a little bit more skilled. And we're in store for a beauty. This is going to be a typical classic Mexican versus Mexican showdown. A lot of it's going to be a war, and that should be the fight that everyone is talking about this weekend. Oscar Valdez versus Emmanuel Navarrate, two Mexicans going to war. Two true warriors of the game of boxing, not a YouTuber, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. That fight is an absolute joke.